good evening, good night, whenever it is you're listening to this. This is Ikdane Burnout series. Ikdane being I can do anything, not everything. And today we're looking at 5 connections between physical health and burnout. And so if you've been keeping up with the session so far, we've covered a lot of ground actually. Today is what, day 13 or something like that? Yeah, day 13. And we're doing the 31 days of May being mental health month, mental health awareness month. And yeah, so today I'm looking at the connections between physical health and burnout. And the thing is, I'll start with a story, right? So, us biologically, I had a conversation with someone recently, and I said that physiologically, we as humans haven't changed or evolved, should we say, as much as we haven't changed physically as much as we have socially or technologically. So you say like the distance between the different eras, right? So, fire, and then we have the agricultural revolution, and then you got the industrial revolution. You've got all these kind of things. Each one, if you look at the significant changes, now we're in the technological and revolution and data and AI, etc. These are coming smaller and smaller and smaller, the distance between them, and they have an effect on how we interact with each other, right? And but we physiologically haven't changed. We've still got 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 fingers, 10 toes. None of that has changed, but we are physiologically trying to keep up with that. Why are you telling us this, Andre? You're probably asking. Well, a lot of the stuff is how our body responds to things has not adapted either. So, for example, back in the day, if you're facing a dangerous animal, your bodies will go into a fight or flight mode, right? It triggers release of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and adrenaline, which is like the energy hormone, right? To action. And it increases our heart rate and blood pressure, and your body will tense, ready to jump, ready to run, ready to move, ready to respond to the threat. This physiological response, right, puts our bodies under stress. But nowadays, you're likely not to be under the threat of a dangerous animal or something like that, right? You're not in the wilderness trying to hunt, for example. But um, though the threat may not be a wild animal, it might be these days more like a deadline. It might be a conflict with your partner or your friend or a colleague at work. It might be a traumatic event or it might be a social trauma, for example, like being aware of what's happening in the world. But the thing is, our bodies respond the same way to those things as they would to that wild animal. And what ends up happening is this stress can lead to this feeling of overwhelm, fatigue, emotional distress when it's not dealt with. So that chronic stress, which is the stress over a long period of time, because we don't give ourselves that break, right? We go from one deadline to another, one project to another, one relationship to another, one argument to another, and we don't actually finish what in the book Burnout, Emily and what's her Emily and Amelia Nagoski talk about the stress cycle. We don't complete our stress cycle before we start a new stress cycle, which means that we just add on to the stresses, right? It becomes chronic stress, which when unmanaged leads to burnout. I'm just going to add there we go. It can lead to burnout. So today I'm talking about 5 connections between physical health and burnout. So what's happening within our bodies, right, that connects us to burnout? So there's only 5 points, but I want you to keep them in mind. The first one is exercise and movement and its effect on burnout. So when you exercise, when you keep yourself moving, when you're going to the gym, you're taking the stairs instead of the lift, when you're keeping yourself away from being completely static all day, getting up every now and again as a break between your work, all those kind of things. When you engage in regular physical activity, It lowers your cortisol levels. Like I mentioned before, the cortisol is the stress hormone. It lowers that. It boosts your endorphins, which are other hormones within your body that gives you energy, and it gives you the feel good hormone. And they regulate your heart rate, right? It helps you to reduce stress, improve your mood, and prevent burnout that way, right? So in terms of physical activities, when we talk about making sure you eat well, drink well, we come to that later, get enough sleep, etc. All these basic things that our body needs. It's not it's not overhyped. These are some basic things that our body needs, but there's physiological reasons for that. We as human beings need it to be able to handle our day-to-day stresses. And so you'll notice, right, when you go to the gym, although you might, really not hate, that's a strong word, although you might not be excited to go to the gym in the morning, when you actually finish the gym, you feel better, right? You've gotten rid of all that stress. It's given that energy somewhere to go. Like when you have an argument, you want to punch something. What happens when you punch something? You actually feel better. When you feel sad, you want to cry. What happens when you cry? You feel better. When you, I don't know, like, so for example, for me, I'm more of a social person. So gym doesn't work so much for me. But if I was to go to a class like Muay Thai or something like that, I'm sure after a session, I've done kickboxing before, after a session, you feel better. You let the energy out instead of letting it build up within you. So exercise and movement is like an immediate connection between stress, physical health, and burnout. If we keep ourselves physically active, engaging in regular activity like that, it helps to maintain. And one of the good things about it is if it becomes part of your weekly routine, it means it keeps it at bay regardless. You don't just wait until you're experiencing extreme stress before you start releasing the energy through physical fitness. Keeping yourself physically fit means that your body is naturally attuned to managing its levels, right? So it means it's healthier all the time. Your immune system is stronger. All those things that I mentioned in yesterday's session, which keeps it at bay in general, will help that. Number two is nutrition and hydration. What you eat, what you drink. So it becomes fuel to your body. So the main thing is actually thinking about nutritious foods and making sure they've got enough in there for what your body needs. And what I would say is pay attention to what your body is longing for. There's often reasons why you have cravings. Is your body is looking for something? Like, is it looking for a sudden boost of energy, or is it looking to feel good when you're triggered in a negative way? And so it drives you towards sugars. And then once you know that what your body is needing, then you can find healthy versions of that thing to satisfy you. All right. So fuel your body with nutritious food. Stay hydrated. Like, there's a reason why they say that you should be drinking 2 to 3 liters of water a day, and if you actually maintain that through the day, you'll start to realize why. Right? You start to feel completely better. It helps your digestion. It helps you sleep better. Like, we're 75% water, right? So we got to replenish that when we sweat, when we're thinking. It burns calories. So using water to replenish, give it the energy to do that, helps to improve your cognitive function. Like, keeping yourself hydrated means that your mind can work better. It helps to regulate your sugar levels, for example, and it combats fatigue, right? It promotes physical health and well-being within your body. Keeping yourself hydrated is so important. It can one of the key symptoms with the physical symptoms of burnout is headaches. Keeping yourself hydrated helps that, right? So it's really important. But when it comes to the food, making sure you're having a balanced diet. So are you eating your proteins? Are you eating your vegetables, your carbs? So is there a balance in what you're eating during the day and during the week? You know, if you're someone who is trying to avoid meat, for example, but you love meat, for example, then you might reduce it to 2 days, for example, a week that you eat meat as opposed to the whole week. They call that flexitarian. So whatever it is that works for you, making sure it's balanced, making sure there is enough nutrients, the fibers, as well within your body to help with the functions that your body needs. And number three is sleep quality. I talked about sleep yesterday, sleep hygiene, but sleep quality is really important as part of your physical health. Sleep is part of your physical health. Speaking as someone who's doing lives at 6 something in the morning every day, I can tell you how important sleep is. Making sure, but sleep really starts the night before. It's how is your excuse me, how is your evening routine allowing you to get enough hours of sleep so that you can wake up whenever you need to? Are you going to sleep and waking up at pretty much the same time every day? And is that gap enough for you to go through different forms of REM sleep, etc., so that your body has time to recharge to fight against burnout, right? And we have to prioritize that quality sleep. Um, for the bedtime routine. And one of the things that I found is as well creating that environment. And I know I spoke about this yesterday, but what does it smell like? What is the lighting situation? What can you hear? Are you next to a main road? Is there a way to um, put another glazing on your window to stop the sounds? Is it warm or is it cold? Like, what is they say for better sleep? You're meant to be in like relatively cold situations in bed. Um, but yeah, it's paying attention to what conditions are needed for you to have the best sleep, and trying to duplicate that each time. Like they say aim for like 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but specifically rest. And I've spoken about this so many times before, but sleep doesn't necessarily mean rest. And sometimes to sleep, you need peace. Sorry, to rest, you need peace. And if you sleep without rest, you can sometimes wake up still tired, right? So making sure as part of your sleep routine, you're finding ways to dump whatever's in here outside of yourself so you can allow yourself the peace to rest within your sleep. And getting enough of that sleep again further helps to reduce your cortisol that you would have built up during the day. Like one of the things that I used to do, which I had to stop doing, is I'll be active all the way through the day, which means the cortisol is building up within my body, and then I'll just turn the light off and expect to go to sleep. It doesn't work like that. You got to find ways to reduce that cortisol level between the time when you finish your activity and you go to sleep. That may look like just having a gap. Like for me, like a good hour, 90 minutes or so was a good gap for me to do that. I was listening to soothing music. I'd read. I don't know, I just literally lay in bed and just listening to sleep meditation, whatever it might be. Giving myself time between the day and the sleep for you to reduce that cortisol level. If you go for a run before bed, it's like one of the things I find really interesting. Sorry to divert slightly, but it's still on the topic. Is paying attention to how we treat children, right? Because what children do, and I've realized this, is what we do with children is what we need. We're actually just really tall kids at the end of the day. We're just unsupervised. So if you think about it, when we look at children, they have naps during the day. We feed them regularly. We make sure that they use up their energy before they go to bed if we want them to have a full night's sleep. All those things, we give them hugs, we give them attention, all those basic things that we need as people. We don't just stop requiring as we get older. So it's important for us to consider those things when we're looking at what the connection between our health, our stress, and then burnout. So just to recap so far, number one is exercise and movement, making sure to keep that as a regular physical activity within our body, within our routines to help reduce our cortisol, boost the endorphins, regulate your heart rate, reduce the stress, improve your mood, etc. Number two is nutrition and hydration, fueling your body with nutritious foods and a balanced diet, but keeping yourself hydrated so you have enough water to continue your cognitive function, reducing your blood sugar levels, combating your fatigue, promoting your helping you think, right? Number three is your sleep quality. Prioritizing quality sleep, creating the environment that will allow you to have that, and rejuvenating your body, preventing burnout, lowering your cortisol levels even more, getting 7 to 9 hours each day. Number four is stress management in general. Now, this one, when it comes to physical health, keeping yourself physically healthy can help manage stress. So, there's techniques such as deep breathing, mindfulness, relaxation exercises. All these things lower your cortisol levels even more. And they're things that you can access as and when is needed. So, in the middle of chaos, in the middle of a stressful situation, you can do these things that can help you relax, because in those stressful situations is when your cortisol levels are going to rise to the most. That's when your body's telling yourself you're in danger, you're in threat mode. And so what ends up happening is, I'll give you an example, and because I mentioned breathing just now, and I mentioned deep breathing specifically. When you shallow breathing and fast shallow breathing is what you do when you're when you're running, for example, right? When you're doing, when you're having a race, or when you're in panic situation, what you might find is, those who experience anxiety, you realize that you can't breathe, you have short, sharp breaths. And that is telling your body that you are in danger, because that's how your body responds when you're in danger. If you're in the savannah and you're facing a wild animal, like I said at the very beginning, you need those short, sharp breaths, because your body's needing that energy really quickly, so that you have enough power in your body to run and dart or jump or roll or all those kind of things. But you don't need that when you're in the office, right? But your body is giving you that energy in case you do. So you need to, in that moment, if you don't regulate it, it means that your stress levels are going to shoot through the roof in that moment. If and without somewhere to put it, it gets trapped within our body, which is what the feeling of anxiety really is, right? So how do you release that energy? One of the ways is deep breathing. You, instead of short, sharp, quick breaths, you force deep, long, paced breaths, and they tell your body that you're actually safe. Even if you're in an environment where you're under stress, it allows you time to actually think. Like I said, your cognitive levels, right? So imagine when you're in that space, whenever your stress levels start going up, whether you find yourself in an argument, whether you find yourself in a situation where someone around you is having a bad day, or they need your help, for example, instead of going into panic mode, giving yourself short, sharp breaths, do long, deep breaths and see how it feels. For me, this was a real big game changer, because I would find myself in situations which are stressful, and when I don't do these things, I would panic and it will make it even worse. So doing these is really important as stress management, and that's your physical body. I mean, we've talked about stress and stresses so many times. You know this by now. Managing the stress itself as opposed to the stressor is really important, because then it gives you space to manage the stressor, which is the thing that is causing you the stress. So now back to number five, right? So we've had exercise and movement, we've had nutrition and hydration, we have quality sleep, we had managing stress in the moment. All of these are all of these are connections between your physical health and burnout. Number five is regular health checkups. Now, this one is like a subtle one that I don't think is spoken about enough when it comes to this burnout conversation. How frequently are you going to your GP? How frequently are you checking up your sexual health, your physical health, your mental health, right? Do you have a therapist? All that kind of stuff. That's for your, emotional health, right? All those kind of things, in the same way as how you'd, um, go to a therapist for your emotional health. How frequently you're booking um, GP appointments, to check your blood levels, your heart rate, your all your hormones levels, your I don't know, your allergies, all those kind of things. How frequently are you booking those checkups? Because part of the NHS, for example, if you live in UK, is you're meant to do that maybe like twice a year, for example, to get a full checkup, and it's something that is covered. You go there and you get the full, I call it the MOT, the physical MOT, because then you can keep things at bay ahead of time. Don't wait until you're in a panic situation. Don't wait until you're on the surgical table. Don't wait until those things before you get checked up. And a lot of the time is if you check it up early, a lot of the things are the treatable. One of the reasons why we have so many people who we lose at the end of the day is because they find out what's happening within their body too late. They might find signs and symptoms and they'll wait until it's actually an emergency before they go into the hospital or into their GP to check out what's going on. The moment you feel off and your body's trying to tell something and it's something's starting to change, you're the person that knows your body better than anyone else. You know when things are great. You know when things are not so great. The moment things start to shift, take yourself to the GP, get checked out. I've been having this cough quite considerably recently. I haven't been able to sleep even though my patterns haven't changed. I've been waking up just as tired as I am when I go to sleep. I haven't been able to think properly recently. I keep getting ill a lot. I find myself needing to be around people a lot or not be around people a lot. All those things, pay attention to that. I keep having headaches. I keep feeling tired without having cause to be. All those kind of things are signs. They're your body trying to tell you something. They're trying to communicate to you that something is off. When those things happen, do all the basics. Make sure you're eating well, make sure you're sleeping well, make sure you're getting physical activity, make sure you're getting time with loved ones so you get an emotional connection. All those things, make sure you're doing those. And if you're doing those and you're still feeling those signs and symptoms, take yourself to the GP, get a checkup. What does it hurt to check those things? Get yourself a blood test, urine sample, all those things. Get a physical test. Test your body for any lumps, for example, regularly. Like those things are important because although there's going to be stress involved in, if you do find one, for example, the the fact that you found it means that you may have time to deal with it, which would release that anyway, right? What is worse is if you don't check up and by the time you've found it, there's nothing they can do, right? And that itself can cause even more stress and lead you towards burnout because then you have this huge cloud above your head and then you got to think about telling your friends and family and coming to terms with it yourself, all your hopes and dreams. If there's something that changes because you haven't been able to keep up to date with your physical health, that is so important. Keeping regular checkups, and I don't think we talk about that enough. Yes, it's scary to go to the hospital and find out if you've got something or not, but what's even more scary is waiting too late and finding out there's nothing they can do. So 5 connections between your physical health and burnout. Number 1, exercise and movement, lowering cortisol levels, boosting your endorphins, regulating your heart rate, reducing stress. Number 2, your nutrition and hydration, making sure you're having a balanced diet to give your body the energy it needs, to give your body the water it needs for its cognitive functions, the glucose it needs for you to think, um, giving yourself enough sugar levels. It helps combat fatigue when you're hydrated and well fed. Um, Number 3, quality sleep. What is the environment you're setting? Are you getting enough sleep? And you're getting enough quality sleep? Are you able to dump whatever's on your mind before you go to sleep? Are you able to complete the stress cycles of the day before you go to sleep so you're not carrying it into sleep and then waking up with it? Because when you're at sleep, it's meant to rejuvenate your health, your body. It's meant to build the connections, the physiological connections within your body. And it can't do that if it's still trying to fight off or deal with whatever you had the day before, right? Number 4 is stress management. In the moment, how do you deal with actual stresses during the day within your body? Are you using your breathing techniques? Are you making sure that you're grounding yourself? Are you making sure that you're doing mindfulness exercises? Do you pray? Like, do you connect yourself with the spiritual? Like, what are the things that you're doing physiologically within the moment of stress that will allow you to reduce those stress levels? Do you pause before you respond? Do you speak gently and quietly, even when people are raising their voice, so that you don't raise or you don't what's the word I'm looking for? Um, you don't amplify whatever stressful situation that is going on. How do you deal with those stress? How do you deal with conflict in general? How do you deal with people who are wronging you? Like whatever happens, like how do you manage the stress within the moment. Number five is regular health checkups. Don't wait until it's too late to get a health checkup. As stressful as it is to check up and to worry, etc., which is basically bringing the ails of the future into the present. As much as it can be like stressful to do that, it's even more stressful to you to find out that it's something that you could have dealt with that you didn't. So I hope this has been helpful. Whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Instagram, those are five connections between your physical health and burnout. And I don't think they're spoken about enough. When we're talking about burnout, we often talk about the stressor, the thing that's causing us stress. So, that deadline, that person who's annoying us, all that kind of stuff. We don't all often talk about, and I've spoken about the emotional side of things, like what is the trauma, what is the history, what are the patterns that you've seen that are making you emotionally fatigued to even deal with whatever basic things, for example, that have on your to-do list that you can't even face right now. But then also now looking at your physical, what is the physical thing that's happening within your body? This is one of the things why somatic healing is so important. Like, what are the things you're doing within your body, your physical space, your physiology? What is your state? That's something I didn't actually mention, your state. So, for example, if you're dealing with stress, is there a way for you to change your state to be able to deal with whatever the stress is? A really good example of this is that I call um, excitement and anxiety, for me, are two sides of the same coin. Physiologically, it's the same thing that's happening in your body. Like, your heart rate is racing, you're doing short, sharp breaths, you might be sweating, you might feel change in your taste buds. All these things are physiological things that's happening. But the only difference between anxiety and excitement are the anticipation of the future being positive or negative. Positive anticipation of the future is excitement. Negative anticipation of the future is anxiety. So, what can you do physiologically to shift your state from the negative to the positive to help you against burnout? One of the things for me, for example, is if I'm going into a stressful situation and I know it's going to be stressful, let's say it's an interview, for example, in the lift. And this is something I actually did once and it actually worked. I heard it on a podcast. And I thought, well, let me try it. Putting your hands in victory pose and holding it for like 5-6 seconds, tensing your body to give your body a way to release that energy, because you might feel it, the tension in your body happening, and we often don't give it somewhere to go. To actually physically tensing your body from head to toe in victory position, maybe it's screaming out in joy, yes, like, and actually saying yes or hooray or something like that, actually giving yourself, and these things sound ridiculous, but promise me, next time you're in a stressful situation, try it, see what happens in your body. I remember doing a battle. I'm a dancer as well, right? I remember doing a dance battle, and one of the things I did when I went into the square against this opponent was I laughed physically. I did something stupid. I can't remember what it was, but I laughed and it got rid of all the tension in the body, which meant that I could then dance properly. Like, I wasn't thinking about this person because I realized in the moment how ridiculous this actual scenario is. I'm getting stressed about dancing against someone when the only thing that would happen if I lose is that I've lost. And that's it. Nothing happens. There's no change in my value in life. There's no change in my trajectory or anything like that. It's just that I didn't win this one, and that's it. And I was sitting there getting stressed, and there's really no consequence to this that was of note. So then I was like, okay, cool. Now I know that. Then I can have fun. And that only happened because I was able to release the tension within my body before I started. That thing about raising my hands in the lift as I went into the interview changed my whole perspective once I walked through that door, because then I was at ease. I told myself that I was going to have a positive anticipation. I went in there relaxed. I'd released that energy that was building up on the way up in the lift and on the way into the space. And it's really important changing your physical state to affect your mental state, which will affect how you deal with stress, which will affect and break this cycle that leads you into burnout. And I think I'm going to need to maybe do a session on changing your state, because I feel like there's so much around that, and there's so many gems in that I don't think we take personally seriously. For example, what state are we in when we make decisions, right? So if we're facing a really big decision and we're in a negative state, we haven't eaten, we haven't slept, we've just come out of an argument, our stress levels are through the roof, our cortisol is jumping around our body like a ping pong ball, and then we have a difficult decision to make. We're going to make one that's not we often make one that's not going to be conducive to our long-term goals, right? We're going to be doing it because we're in an it's like making a decision when you're hungry or you're tired. Think about it. What are the decisions you made under those situations when you've been lacking physical affection from people, right? All these things, you're making decisions based off that. No, change your state. Get yourself into a situation where you're in a physical state which is positive, and then you'll be able to do things in a make decisions in a way that you'll be able to think about the long term and not just your immediate need, right? So those are things to think about. That was, I guess, a bonus one between your physical health and burnout is your state, right? So I hope this helps. If you need help with this, because the thing I've noticed about these kind of platforms is we give you the information, even the solutions, right? But it's the implementation that you need help with. Why is it that I know these things, but I can't apply them? Why is it that I know I need a healthy diet, but I still eat badly? Why is it I know I need good sleep, but I don't go to sleep in time for me to do that? Why is it I know I should be hydrating myself, but then I don't, and then I complain I have headaches and bad health and I can't think properly at work? All these things we know. We know we should be going to therapy. We know we should be doing our deep work and emotional healing. We know we should be reading up about how we connect with each other and how we communicate. We know we should be growing as opposed to remaining stagnant in our mindset. We know we should be doing all these things. We know we should be reading and feeding our mind as well as we feed our body. We know we should be creating boundaries between us and other people. So we are teaching other people how to love ourselves. We know we should love ourselves and forgive ourselves for the way we were in the past and to give ourselves room to grow into the future. We know all these things, but then we don't do them. And that's where we come in as coaches, as therapists, as counselors. We help you to do those things. It's really important to have really good, strong friends around you. But I found for me, it's good to have someone who is not connected with me emotionally, so they can create space specifically for me. Because what ends up happening is me as a natural giver, even though someone comes to me saying that they'll help, I will naturally flip it around and be like, yeah, but how can I help you? You know, I don't want to burden you and all this kind of stuff, which is another reason why givers end up as people who experience burnout, is because you're so much putting help and time into other people without realizing that by doing that, you're taking on their stresses as well. You're giving space for them. But then if you're an empath, for example, their stresses become your stresses. And then you walk away with that. Like you may have created a space, you know, help them reduce their, deal with their immune system, their physiology, their nervous system, all that kind of stuff. You make giving them that space for them to chill out and be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, I feel so much better. But then you have now taken on that stress, and then you go on to another situation and have a stress of your own which builds onto that, and then someone else bumps into you at work and asks for your help, and then that adds to the stress. And then by the time you get to the end of the day, not only are you completely saturated with stress, you have overflow. You have overflow, and people can feel it as they walk past you, right? So you need to deal with those stresses within your body. Like what are the things that you're experiencing? And this is why physical check-ins are so important. I talked about regular health checkups, but it's really good to have physical check-ins. Like any time of the day, stop and think to yourself, what am I feeling right now? You know, from my head to my toe. Like, am I one of the things I do when I'm doing physical therapy sessions is physical MOT, like a physical check-in. We go from the head to toe and relax it. So, relax your eyebrows, for example, relax your shoulders, relax your jaw. All these things that you don't realize you've been building all this tension within your body without realizing, and you haven't really had time to go. There are people um, who need what's it called? These little things that they can bite into as they sleep, because even in their sleep they'll grind their teeth. A lot of that is because you've built up a stress during the day and it's got nowhere to go during the night. So it's really important to look at your physiology and different ways to release the stress and keep the stress at bay, so that when you encounter a stressful situation, you have all the tools that you need to handle that stress. So if you need help implementing that, make sure to book a call. DM me if necessary. We'll have a 30-minute virtual coffee chat. We'll go through whatever you're going through. I'll give you some tips. And if you need more help, I have programs, I have resources that I'll be able to share with you. And make sure you keep connected with the friends and family around you. You're not doing this alone. Burnout is a real thing. World Health Organization has recognized it, and part of their, I think, ICD-11. So it is something that is a real thing. You're not imagining it. Don't let someone gaslight you. If you're experiencing stress for prolonged periods of time and it becomes chronic stress and you don't deal with it, you are likely to end up in burnout. Don't get there before you start dealing with it. And your physical body is a really big key on keeping it at bay. Thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow morning on our next episode talking about